Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Steinberg, and welcome to Around the Ladder, the podcast where we explore the unexpected paths of career journeys. Many of us familiar with the phrase climbing the corporate ladder, but what about when your career doesn't follow a straight line? I love the idea of going around the ladder and really carving out your own career path. And my own journey definitely took this route. After 25 years as an employee, I realized I'm an entrepreneur and I'm not alone in this. And the Around the Ladder podcast is an opportunity for me to talk with others about their journeys. So today I'm very happy to welcome Anne Ryan. Anne provides resume and LinkedIn coaching for professionals and for students. And like many who are called to coaching, she does much more for her clients. So Anne has a rare gift. She sees straight into your potential. She clears the clutter. She can distill down to your greatest strengths. And she doesn't just help her clients find jobs, they really find their purpose. And over the past 10 years, Anne has helped thousands of people, from students to executives, draw out the unique magic that really makes them exceptional. So, Anne, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Erica, thank you so much for inviting me and for the wonderful introduction. And I'm so excited to be here too, to just chat with you for a little bit.
Thank you. So, I loved your LinkedIn post today, by the way,
Oh,
about the
thank you.
person who had all these rejections. So, this was somebody who had
Mhm.
sent out, I think you said like what, 300
300 plus.
applications? Yes.
Yeah.
And had
Hmm.
all those rejections and then started working with you and then turned those rejections into interviews and actually a job offer. I think that must have
Yeah.
been so inspiring. I
Yeah.
got goosebumps even just reading about it. How was the
Oh,
engagement?
thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say. Yeah, he was one of my first ever clients, and the most I've ever heard of a client, like in terms of how many job applications they've submitted without getting an interview, was 450. Which is a lot.
Yeah,
But 300 is a lot too. And so that particular client, he said, I want a job in tech. He had all the skills to be in tech, but his resume just screamed banking. So we updated it. Like he already had the job in tech. He had all the skills. We just had to write it in the correct language, right? We had to do his marketing correctly. And then he started reapplying and very quickly got 3 interviews and a job offer soon after that. So he got his role
I
that
love
he
it.
wanted.
I love
Yeah.
it. Now, I know you were in the tech world for a while. So can you tell me a little bit about your background and how that led you to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I was in software and tech for about 20 years, and I had a few eye-opening years as the hiring manager for my engineering team. And so I would sit in conference rooms and kind of, I call it like Tinder resumes, like into piles. And most of them ended up on the reject pile. And then I started to wonder how many awesome people just happen to have a bad resume, and what can I do about it? So I started to give workshops at tech conferences and colleges, like anywhere my target market of candidate might be. And that's kind of what started my journey as an entrepreneur, was doing these workshops and meeting people who would ask me for help. And I realized that my hypothesis was true, right? There were wonderful candidates who just didn't have a good resume. So I
Mhm.
kept doing the workshops. And then I started to get cold calls from people I didn't know, like my hairstylist boyfriend and my friends, no, seriously, like really, my friends' apartment managers, apartments manager and his fiance, and
Wow.
asking for help. And so they were so lovely. And they were like, can we pay you? And I was like, how? I don't have a business, like I'll help you for half an hour, over Zoom or on the phone because I have this job. And so then the pandemic hit and I was in my apartment thinking about what I wanted to do. And I finally decided to do this full time.
No, it's so funny. I was listening to a podcast episode this morning, and
Mm.
it was an interview with somebody who was talking about burnout. And
Mm.
one of the things that she said was that during COVID, a lot of people really started to question what they wanted to do with their lives. And it was such a reckoning in so many ways. Like you had the great resignation, you have people quiet quitting, but also behind it all, this whole, what do I want to do with my life? Like, was that operating for you? Is that what you found yourself going through?
Well, I think, and I know we just mentioned this prior, like in our pre-conversation, you've thought about doing this podcast for a long time.
Yeah.
And I thought about starting my own business for years before I actually did it. And I was thinking about this earlier, and a lot of people have FOMO, right? Like fear of missing out. I have FOMAM. I made that up, which is fear of making a mistake.
Ah,
So I was petrified of doing it wrong. And so when I was thinking about it, I was living in New York at the time, and New York actually offers a lot of free classes for entrepreneurs. So I took every single one that I could find, like everything from marketing to finance to starting a business. And I took this one class, and I don't remember what class it was, and I don't remember who the instructor was, but she helped push me to do it because I was asking her questions like, how do I launch? How do I know what services to offer? Who's my client? Like all of these questions. And I'm going to do a bad accent, but this is how I hear it in my head. And she was from New York, and she just looked straight in the camera to me, and she goes, "You're going to launch wrong, but I want you to do it anyway." And I
that
was
was
just
a
like,
good accent.
oh, thanks. And I was just like, oh, I'm going to do it wrong. Like, that's fine. Like, basically, she's like, you're going to get it wrong and then you're going to fix it. So
That
don't
just
worry
gave you
about it.
all kinds of permission.
Pretty much.
I
Yeah. And
love
there was
it.
a lot of also my fellow entrepreneur friends, also were extremely supportive. And they said, your face just lights up when you talk about resumes. We've never seen that before. Like,
That's all.
you should,
I
you
I
should
work
do
I
it.
do law for marketing. And it just, people are like, you get very excited
Yeah.
about this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
really love it. I really love my clients. I love the people I work with. I love what I do.
Hmm.
And that's so funny. I remember when I started my business, in between leaving my last firm and starting,
Yeah.
I took about a year off. I really needed
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to relax. I didn't know how to relax, which I didn't realize until I tried doing it. But I had the initial idea for the business a few years before. Then I revisited that idea when I left, and I wasn't ready yet. So
Mm-hmm.
I needed some more time to decompress. When I
Yeah.
finally did it, I will never forget this. I had had a massage, which I really think maybe shook some things loose. And then
Mm.
I went down the road to fill up the car with gas, and I was driving back from that, and this feeling flooded my body. This is the
Mhm.
time. You are ready. Do this now. Just do it. And so I did. And I ended
Mhm.
up, I launched the month I turned 50. And I ended up, my first client was, she had just taken over her firm.
Mhm.
And she was turning 50 that year also.
Wow.
It
Well,
was just,
congratulations.
yeah,
Yeah.
same kind of thing. So let's talk about some superpowers.
Okay.
I know that resumes is one of yours, and I suspect that there are more. So, what else during this career journey have you discovered about your superpowers?
Sure. Well, I mean, thanks for asking the question. And I had to actually think about it for a little bit. And what I found most surprising, and let me take a step back. So, one of the most important trainings that I took as a coach, I actually think was yoga training. I'm a certified 200-hour yoga teacher. I don't teach yoga, but I'm certified in it. And one of the concepts that in the program I took, that they kept kind of sharing and enforcing with us was this concept of holding space for people.
Mhm.
And they said, in your yoga classes, people are going to have what we call yoga face, and they're going to look angry, but they're not angry. They're just in it. They're just really in the practice, in the flow. Like, it's not you. They're fine. Like, just keep doing what you're doing. So they had this, and hold space for people, because also, like you said, you had a massage and might have shook some things loose. That happens in yoga too, right? Like,
Mhm.
sometimes you have pent up emotions and then it releases. And they said some people might cry. Do you know what I mean? Some people might leave your class, and they said it's not a bad way. Sometimes they just get overwhelmed. And so they prepared us for that. So I've held this concept of holding space for others, you know, not like tight, but like I keep it in mind every time I work with a client or every time I talk to somebody. And what I really appreciate, and what people have told me, from workshops that I've attended when they give me talk it out feedback, is that they're say like, Anne was really encouraging, and she was warm, and it was comfortable, and she inspired me, and that means the most to me. because I want to make professional development stuff fun. Like I want to make resumes and LinkedIn profiles fun. I want to have fun during the workshop, like, because
Yeah.
I don't think anyone ever wakes up and goes, I'm really excited to update my LinkedIn profile today. They're like, I have to do it. And I'm like, well, if you have to do it, you might as well have a good time.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I didn't realize that about myself, but that's the feedback that I see consistently. And I'm so grateful that people are sharing that with me because that's unconsciously what I was trying to do without knowing I was trying to do it.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
must be so nice and so rewarding to have that reflected back at you.
it is. Whenever I'm having a day, I read the feedback and then I feel a lot better. So to anyone who's ever submitted talk about feedback for me, thank you.
Oh, that's so nice. So you're doing a lot of workshops and speaking now. What
Yeah.
audiences do you love to speak to?
Well, every audience I've had has been great. I'll just say that for, just flat out. I have a soft spot for students, high school and college students. They're all smart and they're listening and they're engaged and they ask incredible questions and they put in the work.
Yeah.
And I always wish I have way more time in the workshops with them because I want to answer everyone's questions and then they'll volunteer for live reviews, and we'll have a conversation and I really enjoy that aspect of it. So a lot of my workshops were virtual and I'm hoping in the future to keep doing the virtual ones, but also do in person because that time after the workshop when people come up and talk one-on-one, that's probably some of my favorite time and I can help people individually.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I think I went to a when was it? It was probably a number of months ago now. I went to a networking meeting for my college, my alma mater. It was the School of Business, and actually undergrad. I didn't go to the business school. I did for grad school, but
Mhm.
it was the women there were all probably sophomores, juniors, and seniors in college.
Mm.
And it was so nice talking with them. The whole idea was that those of us who were in our career were there to help them and to mentor them
Mhm.
and to give them
Mhm.
advice. And I ended
Mhm.
up staying in touch with one of them. We get together on LinkedIn every now and then.
That's
And
great.
I love it, but I also realize like I get, the same amount, if not more out of it than they do. I love
Mhm.
I love the give and take. I love the curiosity. Uh,
Mhm.
and the openness. I feel like when I was that age and at that stage of my career, I was not naturally that open. And
Mm.
these young women were really open-minded and open-hearted, uh,
Mm.
which I liked a lot. So I can imagine that you're doing, having a discussion and running a workshop with a whole bunch of people around that same age. It must be so rewarding.
It really is. Like it really is. And the last in-person workshop I did was at the Society of Women Engineers conference. I spoke at the conference and my talk was themed around Ken from the Barbie movie. I wrote a fake resume for Ken and I did a workshop around it. So I was dressed as Mojo Dojo Casa House Ken. I actually went in costume and it's really comfortable, by the way. It's like wearing pajamas. So I had a wonderful time and not only I had 45 minutes scheduled and we ended up going an hour and I had to cut it because I was like, I need to stop so, people can go to the rest of the conference. And then I was really touched. I spent another 75 minutes answering questions,
Wow.
just talking in small groups. And some people waited very politely the whole time. And because they waited, I was like, I'll answer all of your, I'm here until one of us gets too hungry or your questions are answered. you know. Um, yeah, and I think, I was happy to help, but yeah, I agree with you. It's like I feel like I'm getting more out of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
that. Um, so I know that we talked about how you thought about going into business for yourself. I
Mhm.
can't remember if I asked you, was there a defining moment that you felt like I had that, oh my goodness, this feeling flooding my body,
Mhm.
you have to do it now. How did yours go?
Well, when it was the really kind facilitator of that workshop, and I
Yeah.
also want to shout out my friend Ellen Lakend. She has a company called Poker Divas, and
Her?
you know Ellen? Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Ellen is the best. Ellen
She
is the
is.
best. And she was so supportive, and so encouraging. And maybe it was one day, I know the day that I got my paperwork, like I filed for the LLC was October 13th, 2020. And I think I talked to the lawyer 3 days before that, and then 3 days later I had a company. Surprisingly easy to get, by the way. Like I thought it would be a process, but it was like 3 days later I had a company. I had no money in the company, but I had a
But I
company.
had a company.
I had a company. And I think I just thought, yeah, this could be really scary, right? But I have to try, or I'll always regret not trying. And if I had to describe being an entrepreneur to anybody, I always say it's the most fun I've ever had, and it's the hardest I've ever worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what are your thoughts? Do you feel the same way? Is that,
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
First of all, Ellen, I think is fantastic. I spoke to her for an article that I wrote
Oh, no way.
because I knew about Poker Divas
Yeah.
decades ago. I mean, she was at the
Mhm.
forefront of empowering women lawyers in business development and marketing. She was lovely. I should get her on here too.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I endorse that.
Yeah. Um, so for me, I whenever I think about my career for entrepreneurship, first of all, I always think about that aha moment that I had when I realized, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, like, and it wasn't, it wasn't even really that immediate. It wasn't like right when I started my business. I think when I started to see the ideas and feel the ideas rolling and rolling and rolling,
Mhm.
I was probably more like 54. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm
Mm.
an entrepreneur. Like, why did I not know this about myself?
Yeah.
But for me, the most surprising part of it, I think, has been
Mhm.
the discovery that my personal journey and my professional journey as an entrepreneur are so inextricably bound together that I
Mhm.
can't even tease them apart. Uh,
Mhm.
like, I don't consider my business a purpose-driven business. It's fairly
Mhm.
corporate. I work with law firms. I love what I
Mhm.
do, and I love the fact that it's corporate. I love the environment that I work in.
Mhm.
Um, I consider myself a mission-driven person, though, and
Mhm.
my mission really has been learning more about myself. And
Mhm.
nothing has led me to learn more about myself than being an entrepreneur. No matter
Mhm.
where you go, there you are. If there's any uh, personal obstacle, it shows up in my business. If
Yeah.
there is and both things show up in both places. And that was the biggest surprise for me. Nothing prepared me for that realization.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it surprises me every time I think about it.
Yeah. And I know we're both Shiftco members, and that's a big part of Shiftco
Yeah.
is that you've got the business and the personal, and they're integrated,
Yes.
and there's personal blocks you have to work through as well as whatever your biggest problem is in your business. And it even
Yes.
took me a while. I was like, well, why is that? It took
I
me a
know. Why do
couple.
I have to do that?
Yeah, yeah. But it's true. And the more I grow personally, the more my business grows professionally.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly it. That is
Yeah.
exactly it. So, was there ever a moment where you thought about doing something else? Because you're right,
Like
sometimes it is really hard.
like every day.
So really, what keeps you going?
So I think there's two things that really keep me going. One of them is all of the people in my network around, like everyone who's so supportive, all the entrepreneurs I know, everybody in Shiftco, like shout out to like Terry and Lisa and Kelly and Michelle and Ray, do you know what I mean? And everybody in Shiftco and all my speaker friends, we have a small group. Uh, so it's the people, and then it's also the people who need me, like
Mhm.
the people I serve. And so my wish for this year is that I create not just a company that I love, but a company that I love for the people who need me. And
Yes.
I'll be honest, like I'm not good at a lot of things. Like I'm good at some things, right? And I'm like very good at writing resumes, and I'm very good at workshops, right? And I'm getting better at speaking. And this is how I've decided, like, this is how I'm going to make my impact. This is why I'm here,
Yeah.
is to do this work. And so the not just the people around me, encouraging, but it's like the people I can help keep me motivated to wake up and do this every day,
Yeah.
even when it gets tough.
I love the focus that you keep on uh, the helping people. Um,
Yeah.
because I notice, and it's probably my world is law firms. I work with lawyers,
Hmm.
and I speak to lawyers a lot about how they sometimes feel, or not sometimes, frequently feel
Yeah.
inauthentic when it comes to marketing. They feel icky.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel natural to them.
Yeah.
And I used to say the same thing about owning my own business and, and selling. I would be like, oh, I could never be
Hmm.
in sales because I could never do that. It felt so unnatural to me.
Yeah.
And now I believe in what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And so it doesn't feel like sales. It feels like I am simply describing how I'm helping and how I can help. So
Hmm.
I tell that to my clients also. This is, think about, recalibrate the whole idea of marketing. You have a skill set, and there are people who need that skill set. And marketing is simply making sure that the people who need your help know that you're available to help them.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like sometimes when people ask me what I do, I say I market people.
Yeah.
And another thing, and I've had a lot of clients say this to me, they're like, Anne, I feel really uncomfortable bragging. And I'm like, oh, it's not bragging. You're just communicating, right? Like the companies have job descriptions because they have a problem they need solved.
Yes.
You have a resume and LinkedIn profile to show I'm the right person, the best person to solve this problem for you. But unless you're really clear about what you can do and what problems you solve, you can't have that like meet cute of finding each other,
Yeah.
so yeah, I understand. Like, I don't think of myself as, I mean, we have to do sales because we're entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't like the typical sale route. I just want to go out there and provide value and serve people, and the rest kind of comes after,
Yeah.
the rest kind of comes naturally.
Yeah. Somebody once said to me years ago, how do you convince law firms to hire you? And I say, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
If I can help in a certain way, and if they need that help, and it's a, personality wise, we match up and they see
Mm-hmm.
the value in it, there's no convincing. If I have to convince somebody, then I think that we're probably not a good match.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot, uh, just makes it a lot easier to move through that process.
Yeah. And I also think people find you when they're ready
Yes.
too, and I always say to folks, like, there's no rush. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's happened to me before. I've talked to people and then a year later they come back, they're like, I'm ready now. I go, great, let's start.
Wow. Do
Yes,
they
that's
ever
happened to me
share with
more
you
than once.
what some of the delays or some of what they had to work through to go from not ready to ready?
Sometimes it's a time thing. They don't have the time yet, or they wanted to try a few things first,
Hmm.
or there's been a catalyst event, they've been laid off, do you know what I mean? Or they decided that now is the time they want to get back into the workforce. So it can be sometimes, you know, I think it could be a combination of a lot of things, right? Like we kind of like we woke up and we were like, I think we'll start a business. It's like when clients come to me, they're like, I think I want to take a different direction in my career, or I want to restart my career,
Yeah.
or I want to get that promotion, whatever it is. And I'm so grateful to be involved in that journey with people,
Yeah.
to help them get to that next place.
Yeah, because it's not just doing their resumes for them. It's really, I would imagine that there's a lot of there could be a lot of angst during the process, a lot of worrying. So I would imagine that, you seem a very calming presence. So it
Thank
must
you.
be
Thank you.
in
Yeah,
this
my job is
complicated
to
way you
remain
do.
calm. Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever come to me like totally calm. My job is to remain calm and provide that safe space.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. So looking back now, is there anything that you do differently?
Yes, I would have back-end systems early on. That would
Uh,
be my number one thing. I would have a bookkeeper
mhm.
early on. And I would have backend systems as in like an email list or CRM, some way to keep track, because I sort of, you start everything brute force. Right. And then I just kept going with that. And then things started to get confusing because I would write something down on a post-it note and then I'd lose the post-it note behind a piece of furniture, like, and things started to get confusing and I couldn't even keep track of everything. So I have the systems now, but if I would give any advice to someone who's, starting their entrepreneurship journey, it's get your systems in place. And they can be free. They don't have to be super robust. You just need something. And then when that doesn't work for you anymore, then you get something else.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in that stage myself now where I am
Mm-hmm.
leveling up the systems and the
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure
Yeah.
uh, for the business that I want to have.
Yeah.
So it has
Yeah.
served me the way I started, and I started with all of as many free tools as I could. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that served me for a really long time. And
Yeah.
over the course of the last few years, I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
it's time to step these up a little bit more now.
Yeah. What would you say to that? Like, what would you say to someone who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, or would you do differently?
What would I do differently?
Mm.
You know what? I don't know that I would do anything differently.
Mm.
I feel like everything, every step, every stage, even like the mistakes, I've been able to reframe really all of them
Mm.
as learning experiences. So
Mm-hmm.
if everything went swimmingly, I would not have learned as much.
Mm.
So even though there were some, mistakes along the way, or I don't even want to call them mistakes. I remember a friend of mine told me at the very beginning, she said, you're gonna, with project pricing, you're gonna do it wrong right off the bat. It's gonna take you a few years.
Right.
And she was right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I'm at peace with that now. But, and each time, like take pricing, for example, each time I've gotten it wrong, it's been a learning experience. Every time, so I
Yeah.
can't, I can't say that I would do anything differently right now.
That is such a healthy perspective. And I have he's one of my speaking coaches. His name is Chris Kelso, and he speaks about imposter syndrome. And I
Mhm.
was lucky enough to go and see his keynote a few weeks ago. And I took notes. I always take notes. And one of the things he said was like, failures are the pathway to success. I'm paraphrasing. So sorry, Chris, if I didn't get it
Yeah.
exactly right. But it was just such a nice perspective shift is like, failure is not like, it's only failure if you make it failure. If you make
Yeah.
it a learning block, it's what you do after that.
Yes.
And so something that I've, like I mentioned, I have FOMAM, fear of making a mistake.
Yeah.
And it's helpful to just wake up and be like, what mistakes will I make today? Like, because you
Yeah.
learn more from mistakes than you do the things you do right, because you're like, well, I'm not going to do that again. Like,
Yeah. I think a
yeah.
while back, my husband told me about something. I don't know if it was a podcast he listened to or an article he read,
Yeah.
but he had read, I think, that the woman who started Spanx used to have
Mm-hmm.
her father would ask her every day, what did you fail at today? And he created an environment where it was good to fail. So
Yeah.
she didn't worry about that. I grew up feeling like I can't make any mistakes. Everything has to be
Mm-hmm.
perfect. I'm very
Yep.
detail oriented. So if a
Mm-hmm.
mistake was made, I failed at my central purpose.
Right.
The thing that I'm good at is being detail driven. But he
Mm.
created this environment where she would happily talk about what she failed at that day and what she learned.
That's
So
awesome. I'm going to
I
start
know,
doing that for
right?
myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing that.
I love it. I love it. So I have one more question for you.
Okay.
What is something that you think you would have missed out on if you hadn't followed your current path? Like something that is true now that you can't imagine going without?
Okay, I have three answers to the question. One, it's meeting people. It's everybody I've met. Maybe I have two answers because the people involves clients and colleagues, and fellow entrepreneurs and speakers. But the thing that I would have missed out on had I not become an entrepreneur and not a speaker is my boyfriend, actually. We
Oh,
met
good
we
one.
met while I was here in Florida. I just moved from New York City to Florida, and we met while I was here in Florida on a speaking engagement. And
Wow.
that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been here to do that. So that's my answer to the question. I would have missed out on my boyfriend.
That's a big one. That's a big one. So
Yeah.
you clearly followed the right path.
Yeah, he's the best.
Oh, good.
He's the
Good.
best. Yeah.
Yes, he loaned you the plant.
He did. He did loan me this plant for this podcast. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Anne, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. This has been so much fun. I loved getting to know you better and learning more about you.
Same, Erica. Thank you for having me. And this half an hour has gone by like so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another round around the ladder. And I hope you'll come back to listen to more. Bye.